Chapter 13, The Weaponized Crisis, George W. Bush and the Perpetual War Machine. The presidency of George W. Bush began in the shadow of the deep recession of the early 2000s, a period of economic instability that perfectly set the stage for the Iron Grip's next grand maneuver, the engineered and perpetual crisis. The network, having perfected the art of profiting from chaos and the drug trade, faced an unexpected threat to its financial security, a threat that was violently and permanently eliminated by the events of 9/11. The events of 2001 were not just a failure of intelligence. They were a systemic compromise that allowed the Iron Grip to execute its most profitable and devastating exploit and profit operation yet, the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan and Iraq. The preemptive strike, securing the financial black hole. The most critical operational achievement of 9/11 was not merely the distraction of the nation, but the preemptive elimination of a massive financial threat to the Iron Grip's stability. The uncovered fraud. On September 10th, 2001, the day before the attacks, Secretary of Defense Donald H. Rumsfeld announced that the Department of Defense, DoD, could not account for approximately $2.3 trillion in transactions. This massive, unsecured pool of money was an environment ripe for the Iron Grip's looting. The targeted elimination. The timing of the subsequent attack was surgically precise. At 9:37 a.m. the following morning, American Airlines Flight 77, or a proxy weapon, struck the Pentagon. The target was the Wedge 1 section, which housed the Defense Finance and Accounting Service, DFAS, audit team, the very personnel responsible for investigating and resolving the financial black hole of the missing trillions. The Casualty Anomaly. The attack killed 125 people inside the Pentagon, including key members of the auditing and budgetary staff. This destruction of records and personnel was a successful, violent execution of the Eliminate and Silence Protocol, ensuring the financial audit trail was permanently broken. Crucially, the Boeing 757, which has a capacity of up to 200, was flying with an extremely low load factor of only 64 people, supporting the theory that the flight was strategically selected to minimize witnesses while ensuring the deaths of specific targets. The Pentagon is the largest office building in the world, and the 125 people lost, while tragic, is a small fraction of the 5,000 that would typically be present. The Obfuscate and Obstruct mandate, controlling the evidence. Following the strike, the Iron Grip immediately deployed the familiar obfuscation template used after the JFK and RFK assassinations to protect the true nature of the event. Seizure of evidence. The FBI immediately launched an investigation, Pent Bomb, and seized all surveillance camera footage from traffic cameras, businesses, and security gates surrounding the Pentagon crash site. Narrative control. Despite seizing countless hours of video, the FBI released only a few blurry frames from a single parking gate camera years later under court order. These limited frames fueled conspiracy theories about the attacking object being a missile or a smaller craft, deliberately diverting public and media attention away from the crucial facts, the destruction of the auditing offices, and the fate of the missing $2.3 trillion. The unresolved failure. With the personnel and records destroyed, the DoD was later granted a waiver from publishing audited financial statements, and the department remains the only major federal agency to have never passed a full audit, confirming the total impunity and continued financial control of the iron grip. The weaponized crisis and the perpetual war machine. The 9/11 attacks were instantly leveraged into the war on terror, an engineered and perpetual crisis designed to secure the network's core interests. The heroin threat and the supply line reestablished. The mob's primary source of funding, the heroin trade, was abruptly cut off in 2000 by Mullah Muhammad Omar's edict. The accusation against the CIA's recycled asset, Osama bin Laden, provided the perfect casus belli. The supply line reestablished. Immediately following the U.S. invasion in late 2001, opium cultivation exploded under the nose of the American military occupation. The presence of U.S. and NATO forces inadvertently provided the security and logistical cover necessary for local warlords and criminal elements to not only resume but skyrocket production. This ensured a continuous, reliable flow of narcotics for the next 2 decades. The fentanyl transition. By the early 2010s, the market was increasingly dominated by synthetic opioids such as fentanyl, which negated the need for large-scale, geographically fixed heroin production. The diversification mandate. As the market shifted, the network pivoted, utilizing the established, protected infrastructure to shift to the production of methamphetamine. Afghanistan, a landlocked country secured by U.S. forces, became a major source of this new synthetic drug, demonstrating that the presence of U.S. forces had created a stable, protected environment for the manufacture and export of massive quantities of illicit drugs. Iraq, the conduit, and the cash. The invasion of Iraq simultaneously served 2 critical functions for the iron grip. It was a massive wealth transfer and a logistical necessity. Looting the nation. Iraq, unlike Afghanistan, was rich. The invasion resulted in the systematic looting of the nation. Cash reserves, gold, and digital wealth disappeared in the chaos. The profits were diverted into a system of corruption and no-bid contracts controlled by the network's political and industrial allies, with companies like Halliburton, formerly led by Vice President Dick Cheney, ensuring an immediate flow of money directly linking the war to the political elite. The drug conduit. The destabilization of Iraq and its porous borders provided the necessary trade routes and logistical hubs to move the massive supply of Afghan heroin and meth out of the landlocked region and into global markets. State-sanctioned violence. The occupation was defined by chaos and internal conflict, with U.S. armed and trained death squads roaming the country, responsible for the murder of hundreds of thousands of people. This served to terrorize the population and eliminate any organized resistance to the looting and trafficking operations. In short, the policies and actions of the George W. Bush administration following September 11, 2001, utilized crisis to implement a perpetual war model. It was a systematic exploitation of a failure of duty, generating unprecedented wealth and power for the iron grip at the expense of human life and constitutional norms. The war served its true purpose, securing the conditions for the network's exploit and profit mandate on a global scale. The continuous cover-up, from missing trillions to elite impunity. The successful execution of the 9/11 strike secured the Iron Grip's financial position by destroying the audit trail. However, this single act of violence was not the beginning of the financial rot, but the decisive victory in a long-running institutional failure that served the network's interest for decades. The original sin, a decades-long financial black hole. The $2.3 trillion announced as missing by Secretary Rumsfeld was not money stolen entirely on the eve of the attack. It was the accumulated total of unsupported accounting entries over years, highlighting a systemic failure of financial control that predated the Bush administration. Clinton's legacy of failure. The vast majority of this financial black hole accumulated during the William Clinton administration's tenure, demonstrating a sustained, bipartisan failure to enforce basic financial oversight within the Department of Defense. This provided the Iron Grip with decades of operational space to manipulate and divert funds through opaque contracts and transactions. Bush's guarantee of impunity. While the missing trillions were not his creation, President George W. Bush became the guarantor of the cover-up. By allowing the Obfuscate and Obstruct mandate to succeed on September 11th, and by immediately pivoting the entire nation to the war on terror, the administration effectively ensured that the $2.3 trillion financial investigation would never be seriously pursued. The attention, resources, and public will were all permanently diverted, providing permanent immunity for all previous and future financial actors involved in the theft. This calculated failure to act on a known crisis was a shocking dereliction of duty that protected the network's financial infrastructure. The endgame chaos, the Justice Department, and elite silence. The Iron Grip's ability to secure impunity extended beyond financial crimes and military contracts. It reached into the highest levels of moral and judicial failure, culminating in the chaos at the end of the Bush administration's Justice Department. The Attorney General carousel. The final years of the Bush administration were marked by instability and rapid turnover at the Department of Justice. Between late 2007 and 2008, the position of Attorney General changed hands 3 times, from Alberto Gonzales to Michael Mukasey, then to Acting AG Mark Phillip. Blurring responsibility. This intense, high-level administrative chaos at the Justice Department was not merely bureaucratic inefficiency. It perfectly served to blur and shift responsibility for critical legal decisions, providing the Iron Grip with an ideal environment to influence sensitive prosecutions. The Epstein failure, 2008. This chaos contributed directly to one of the most egregious examples of elite protection, the failure to prosecute Jeffrey Epstein in 2008. The Justice Department, operating under this cloak of administrative upheaval, signed a non-prosecution agreement that effectively shielded Epstein, a powerful figure with deep connections to global elites and financial networks, from federal scrutiny. This failure to secure justice for victims and the granting of exceptional immunity to a connected criminal demonstrated the continuous, unbroken success of the Obfuscate and Obstruct template. The assassination playbook: eliminate the target, silence the witnesses, obfuscate the evidence, had evolved into the total, systemic guarantee of impunity for the elite. By the end of the Bush years, the iron grip had successfully turned the United States government into its permanent, unquestioning shield.